You are watching TFI.
Greetings! Recording this on a cheap overexposed webcam whilst there's a pretty capable camera sat on the shelf behind me, boy here, and welcome back to another video on VR, because over the last few months I've done a fair few of them on the channel, and I've seen the question being asked quite a fair bit, mate, how do we get to that point where you're at, where we're bringing data into VR and looking at it in a headset? We see you doing it, we see other people doing it, it looks awesome, we want to try that, but we've no idea how to even get started and what we've got to do to get to that point. So that's what we're going to be looking at in this video. And over the course of this video, I'm going to have to make a couple of assumptions and also get a few things out of the way first. That being, there's no gaming or any kind of consumer angle on this video. This is intentionally, explicitly for company and business use. So if you're a company and you're looking to maybe experiment with VR, you have no idea if it's going to be right for you, so you don't want to spend too much money on it, but you want to do a bit of a proof of concept. That's the kind of angle that I'm coming at here. And also this is, and it has to be intentionally very, very brief as possible while still giving you enough to go off though, because every step along the way, there are entire YouTube channels dedicated to each step along the way. So without making this like 5 hours long, which nobody would watch, I have to make it as short and as digestible and as easy to follow as possible. So it's going to be intentionally very, very brief. So with all that out of the way, let's get started with exactly what you need to get going in VR, mate. And there's obviously one overriding factor, and that's money. There always is. You're not going to be able to implement a project like this without spending some money. It's unavoidable. And the thing is with VR, it scales with money. Your experience and the performance of the VR equipment will scale the more money you plow into each of the steps along the way. So there's three things you need to acquire in order to get started with VR. The first is you need a PC or a workstation, which you might already have, but we need to talk about whether or not it's going to be good enough. You need, number two, a VR headset, and then number three, you need the software to run this all on. So those are the three things that you need, and we're going to discuss each of those across the course of the video. Right then, we'll start with the PC/workstation. This is going to be difficult to keep brief because there are billions and billions of configurations and options to go for, and there are channels dedicated to talking about this in depth. But there's two options you can go for. There's two roads you can go down. You can either build your own computer or you can buy a vendor workstation from an OEM like Dell, HP, or Lenovo. If you're comfortable and confident building your own computer, you could argue you don't necessarily need this video, but I'm going to give you a couple of parts lists anyway, just to choose from. You could get someone else to build it, I don't know, but this is a low cost option, and then this one is a high cost option. The high cost option is relevant as of today, but in 6 months, 12 months time, it could be completely obsolete. That's just the nature of PCs. But this is the one that I've bought myself to put into my VR lab at work, and it will run VR and CAD models like an absolute champ. But if you do go for the low cost option, it will still be fine. The high cost option will just allow you to run the CAD data in VR at a slightly higher resolution and a little bit crisper. It might be able to handle more data in a scene. It's just one of those things. Like I said, the more money you throw at it, the better the experience will be. If you want to go for a vendor workstation from Dell or HP, again, there's billions of configurations. They change all the time. But you want to try and go for something with a CPU of a base clock of around 3.7 or higher, boost clock of 4.5 gigahertz or higher, 32 to 64 gigabytes of RAM. And for the graphics card, yes, you can go for, if they give you the option, go for an RTX 2070 or higher card. But there's chances are the Dells and HPs are going to be offering just Quadro cards. So you want to go for an RTX or a P4000 or an RTX or a P5000. They're expensive, but that's the nature of the beast when it comes to vendor workstations. And for the VR headset, this is another one that will scale with money. There's sort of an entry level all the way up to high end. The entry level is probably where I would recommend you mostly concentrate on, because if you're not sure if it's going to work out for you and if it's going to be beneficial, then what's the point in spending $5,000 on a high-end headset at this point, when you can do that later on once you've established whether it's right for you or not. So the entry-level headsets are going to be the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift S. One tier up from that will be the HTC Vive Pro. A level up from that is the likes of the Pimax VR headset. Then you've got Star VR and you've got Xtal VR Engineer's headset. They're all higher resolution headsets with more functionality built in, and the likes of real-time hand tracking. But if you want to go in at entry level at the lowest cost point, I suggest the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift S. If you've got no idea, I've got a video, I'll link it up here, which compares the pros and cons to the Vive versus the Rift S. If you don't want to watch that and you just want to be told which one to go for the Rift S. It's the easiest to set up, it's the least complicated, and it's got the crisper visuals, and it's more portable than the HTC Vive as well if you're looking to move it around your office. And then just go for the Oculus Rift S. And as for the software, this is another tricky one to advise on because I don't know which industry you're in, mate. But if you want a generic, quite good platform to work with, and you don't want to spend, or you can't spend any money on this anytime soon, then you can go for a games engine, the likes of Unreal Engine 4 or Unity, which will bring in CAD data as long as you export it out as a step file first, which is a bit of a middle step, but it will work. And you do get really good visuals in them. I'm not myself all that experienced with either of those software applications, so I can't advise on them in this video, but they are very good and they do work. If you're in the architectural world, you can use the likes of Enscape, which can bring data in from Revit at a push of a button. It integrates into Revit quite well. If you use 3D Studio Max, that has its own VR tools built into it. But as a generic kind of catch-all, I'm going to look at Autodesk VRED in this video because this brings in natively data from almost every CAD application, whether you're an Inventor user, Pro Engineer, CATIA, SolidWorks. It'll bring in all of those files natively without any translation in between, and it's, from my point of view anyway, it's very easy to use and it's got great tools built into it. So that's the software we're going to be looking at. If you want to have a go at VRED, you can download it off the Autodesk website. I'll put a link in the description. You can get a 30-day trial for free. If you're a student, you can get access to it for free for as long as you're a student. And I think if you want to buy the license as well, the cost is on the Autodesk website. There's two licenses. There's VRED Design, there's VRED Professional. Chances are in the early stages you'll want to go for a VRED Design license and then evaluate whether or not you want to go for a professional license later on. So in this video we're going to be looking at Autodesk VRED. Links to download and that will be in the description. Alright then, that's the three things that you need to buy. Pick the right PC, get that ordered, wait for it to be delivered. Go to an online retailer, purchase your Oculus Rift S, and then download and install the software that we're going to be using. In this case, it'll be Autodesk VRED. I don't need to do an install guide for that because it is literally just next to install that. Wait for those things to arrive, and then you can, I guess, pick me up and replay this video once you've got all those three things on site. Hi, and maybe welcome back. Once you've got your VR headset on site, unbox it. The Oculus Rift S is extremely easy to set up. It should just come with the headset like this with two ports. That's all you need. Plug that one into a free USB port, and then plug that one into your graphics card into a display port socket. If you went for one of the graphics cards that are recommended, the Quadros or the RTX cards, they will have a free display port for you to plug that into. Take the hand controllers or the touch controllers, obviously take the battery cover off, put a battery in. I'm pretty sure you don't need that explained here, but that needs to be done. And then we'll pick this up in just a second. And right, once you've got your headset plugged in and the battery's all in your touch controllers, go to Google, do a search for Oculus Rift software, and then you'll see a link called Oculus Rift Setup. Click into that. You'll be taken to this page, scroll down, select Download Oculus Rift software, and then give that a click. It'll launch an installer. It might take a few minutes, depending on your internet speed. There's roughly 8 to 10 gigabytes of data to download. Wait for that to install. It'll take you through a wizard for setting up your Oculus Rift, and once that's set up and you're in VR, we'll pick that up once you're all done. Right, once you've downloaded and installed the Oculus software, put your headset on. It should take you through the Oculus setup routines where it gets you to define the play space and the floor level where you've got to push your hand down to the ground, and that should be it. The setup's very simple. It's been designed so that almost everyone can follow it. Once that's done, mate, put on your headset and you should see the Oculus Home. And then you've got your hand controllers. Just make sure that everything's fine. We don't have to do anything in here. This is just validation that your Oculus is actually working. Make sure it's not jittery, it's not stuttery. It's as clear as you need it to be. Have a good rift through the settings. For example, go into the headset settings and then make sure your IPD, that's the distance between your pupils, is set correctly. That's about all we need to do for this point, mate. As long as your VR headset's working, we can now move on to the next step. And that step is to get your files, mate. Get your design files to put into VR. So you can use your own files if you want to during this step, but so that everyone can follow along, we're going to go to the Autodesk website and download some sample files. Now, I did say VRED can import CATIA, SolidWorks, Pro Engineer, Inventor, almost any CAD file. But we're going to go over to Google, do a search for Inventor sample files. Click the top link, Inventor Sample Files. That'll take you to the download area, and then select the jet engine model.zip. Give that link a click and wait for it to download. It might take a couple of minutes because it's quite a large file. Once it's downloaded, move the zip file to your desktop, providing you've got something like WinZip or WinRAR, which most people do have. Right click and drag that file and then extract it to your desktop, and that should create a folder called Jet Engine Model with all the CAD files, and these are native CAD files as well, they haven't been translated. Then go to your Autodesk Vred Design or Vred Pro icon on the desktop, double click that and then open it up. If it's a trial, it's fine, you can still do everything that I'm about to do in the trial of Autodesk Vred, and then select Import on the top toolbar, browse to your desktop, go to the Jet Engine Model workspace folder, and then double click _Jet Engine Model.iam. Give that a click, and then in the import settings, we're going to select tessellation quality high. We're going to scroll down, select put on the ground, center in the origin, and then click import. And that should take a couple of minutes, and we'll pick it up when it's done. And there it is in all its glory. That only took around a minute to import, which is quite impressive. It means getting up and running with VR in Vred is pretty quick, which is very useful when you're doing this at work. Now, and this is not a Vred tutorial. I've already done one of those on the channel. I'll link that up here. That's a getting started guide on Vred, but just so you can navigate around at this point, hold down the left mouse button, that'll do an orbit, scroll the middle wheel, that's zoom in and zoom out, press the middle wheel and that's pan around. To get this scene ready for VR, there's a couple of basic things we can do, just to the point where we can get it in and look at it. It'll not look as pretty as it could be, but it's enough. So the first thing we need to do is put it in the right orientation because it's standing on its backside. So we're going to select the graph button on the bottom, select the Jet Engine node, and then go to the transform option at the bottom. In the X field, type in 90 and then press return, and that should rotate it 90 degrees on the X axis, and then select put object on the ground, and that'll put it closer to the ground. Not quite on the ground, but close enough. Now it is missing a few components, so right click on the node on the left and then select show hide all, and that'll enable the back end. I don't know why it brought those in invisible, but it just does it for this particular model. The next thing we're going to do is turn on the ruler, and what you're going to notice is that these are, well, I think they're millimeters, and this is a sort of 800 roughly millimeter long engine, which is obviously not the right scale. So we're going to scale the engine up by 10. So scroll down the transform box, go to the scaling option, and then type in 10, providing uniform scaling is selected. Press return, and it'll scale the entire thing up by a factor of 10 in all directions, and then just select put object on the ground again. And then there you go, mate. Shift and right click in an empty space will unselect everything, untick ruler, and then close down the transform box, and we're almost good to go in VR, mate. That's about all we need just to get it in VR. So you want to go to the view menu at the top, go to display, and then Oculus Rift, put on your headset, and we're now looking at the engine in all of its glory, and it is absolutely fantastic. This is incredible. Put on your headset, grab your controller, and then you can use the thumbstick just to point that at the ground. Turn it around so you can see the arrows pointing towards the engine. Press the thumbstick and that'll teleport you to the other side of the engine, and we can now walk around it and inspect it in VR. And then providing you do have, which you will have, an external monitor or a TV rigged up to your PC or your laptop, someone else in the same room can look at what you're looking at, exactly how you're looking at what I'm looking at right now. And then you can do your design reviews just by going up close and then sort of pointing at things and giving it a good old inspect, mate. And that's it. That's your designs in VR. Now, it might be a little bit jaggedy. If you want it to be a little bit crisper and you do have some performance headroom on your computer, you can go to the visualization drop down, go to real-time anti-aliasing, and then turn that on to high or ultra high, and you'll see that slightly sharpens up the edges, and it does make a big difference in VR. Providing that you went for, say, the 2080 Ti or the 2070 graphics card, you should have enough power to present the models in VR with anti-aliasing. So that's all the edges smoothed. You can see all these edges on the models. Without anti-aliasing, they've got the sort of stepped jaggedy effect, but with anti-aliasing, they're quite smoothed out. To put it back into regular Vred mode, go to View, Display, Standard Display, and that puts it back. And then you can follow my tutorial for how to bake shadows onto the model to make it look a little bit more realistic. You can also go into Interaction, Clipping, for example, and then you can enable a clipping plane. You can then turn off the clipping plane, turn off the grid, turn off that. Go back into VR, and you can look at your model with a cross section, so you can look at the internals, which is an experience that you just seldom get, to be honest. That is incredible. It's flashing a little bit because we've got a couple of objects on top of each other, but we can forgive that. There will be a way around that and minimizing that, but for now, that is more than good enough. Right, there you go indeed, mate. That's not very quick and a little bit dirty way of getting your designs into VR using the Rift S and Autodesk Vred. And that's the exact process that I'm going through in my company to show the engineers their designs for design reviews. And I'm going to be building on that in the future for sales, for training, for simulation, for whatever we want to do. That's the process we're going to be going through, and you can do it too just by following those steps, and it'll be a lot quicker if you're not talking as much as I was all the way through it. It's a matter of minutes, that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, mate. If you found this useful and it's going to help you out, do consider giving that like button an absolute kick up the backside, and consider getting subscribed if you're not already. And if you absolutely loved it and you want to see more stuff like this, which I absolutely can do, then do consider supporting the channel on Patreon, because that's the way that I justify buying the stuff for YouTube to show you guys, because I've turned down pretty much every sponsor so far that's approached me, because their products are usually absolutely crap, even though they're on most other YouTube channels. Anyway, we'll not get into that. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much. Toodles.